That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable. The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place.
During the Cold War, the constant threat of a global nuclear conflict was a dark specter that haunted the heads of the world's superpowers. Almost every occurrence of objects launched into the atmosphere had to be identified and accounted for. Hundreds of missile tests and satellite launches from both sides of the Iron Curtain were matters of national concern. But it wasn't until 1978 that the Soviet Union took a formal action to investigate UFOs that had been reported all across the country. This decision came on the heels of a spectacular event that occurred in the late summer of the year before. An event that was observed by scores of witnesses across northwestern Russia and as far as Finland. An enormous UFO that seemed to have almost biological properties as it lit up the night sky. This case file joined the theorists as they jam out with the giant Soviet jellyfish, also known as the Petrozavodsk Phenomenon.
Welcome to Alien Theorists Theorizing, Case File 214, Petrozavodsk Phenomenon, a.k.a. the Jellyfish Anomaly. I'm Braden.
I'm Zell.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Andrew.
I like that.
Did I say it right?
Jellyfish Anomaly. We're going with that.
You got it.
I wasn't sure because it was, I was fucking it up right before we started. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, if you didn't fuck it up a bit, it probably wouldn't have sounded right anyways. I think that's just come to be expected.
Yeah, you're not
now.
allowed to speak perfect by any means.
I mean, if we wanted the intro done perfectly, we'd get Dan to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have a choice.
We don't keep you around for your pronunciation skills.
No. I don't know why you keep me around.
Why do we? Yeah, why is anyone kept around?
It's all superficial, man. So baby blues.
I'll keep them around for sex appeal. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
For
BJ
the
Cheeks.
13 people that watch
It's all eyes and thighs, man. That's all we want.
Yeah.
Eyes and thighs.
With this fancy done up photo he does for himself for the socials.
It's the only photo I have of myself on there. The only photo that's on Canva.
The rest of us are just stock, and then Braden's got a fucking wig on, glasses. Love it.
I can't. I just have a memeable face. I can't help myself. This was the UFO. No, the Patreon fan pick of the week or the month. Normally we rag on them for their picks. This one, at first glance, I was like, "What the hell?" They picked another stinker. But no, it's pretty good. So if you want your voice heard, jump on Patreon.com. I think it's $10 and up. Picks once a month. What we do. Is it?
Yep.
Is that
I believe so.
$10 tier gets to put in their vote for whatever we put up there. Usually put 3 choices at the beginning of the month, and those write it out. And whichever one, they fight to the death, and whoever comes out on top, that's what we do at the end of the month.
And I mean, like, just to show how devoted we are to taking your guys' opinion, we still do them when they fucking suck. So it goes to show you, like, we're right when there's shitty topics, we still do it for you guys, right? Like,
I mean, there's no shitty topics, but
that's some shit.
We're just shitty at doing them.
A couple duds. Huh?
We're just shitty at doing them.
Potentially. Hey, no, we're deflecting the blame to them. It's their fault for picking the shitty one.
So if you don't like this one, it again, can't stress
it's your fucking
enough.
fault. You blame it on yourself. Look in the mirror.
It's
Look in
all
the
of our
fucking mirror.
supporters' fault.
No, this week though, I think it's a cool
an interesting one.
Another one I've never heard of before, not even remotely. And there's not a lot of info on it on the internet.
This one is immensely important in terms of the history of ufology. I think outside of the United States, at least.
Yeah.
This one is immensely important, and that I also hadn't heard of it. I think when I came across it for the choices, kind of poked around and came upon this one, and yeah, superficially, like right at first glance, doesn't seem that much, but then when you get into it, you realize that its historical significance is vastly, I think, like understated.
It's like it's up there with Blue Book. You know,
it should be
just a Russian version.
And like tiny spoiler alert. I went into this one thinking, oh, this is some UFO case. And I left thinking, maybe this is a cryptid case.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's like a fucking giant tentacruel in the sky.
Yeah, possibly.
So it's a Pokemon cryptid.
Some light anomaly.
All right.
Because some people call it the jellyfish anomaly.
It's true.
And maybe this is some sort of weird atmospheric beast. That's something that I learned about while looking into this case file, is that of like atmospheric beasts. So, but without further ado, what is this case? Where does it start off?
So
Not
on September
Russia.
20th, yes, definitely Russia. So on September 20th, 1977, you had an event which was to become known as the Petrozavodsk Phenomenon. But that wasn't the first name for it. Originally, it was kind of the phenomenon over Petrozavodsk. And then even some news articles at the time would go as far as calling it the Petrozavodsk miracle. Once they got their hands on it.
I had also read that it was just at one point called the phenomenon.
Yeah.
That's it. Just that's the phenomenon. One everyone knew.
Oh, it's just the phenomenon over Petrozavodsk. That was the name.
I had read that at one point it was just referred to as just the phenomenon. But I guess more phenomenon started happening, and they're like,
phenomenon
had to relinquish its title.
Yeah, we gotta add some stuff to this.
We gotta clarify which one.
People are starting to say which one.
So again, on that, that late September or mid-September day, you had sightings of a huge, some people described, or many people described, as a jellyfish-shaped object in the sky. And these reports came in from not only Russia, but also as far as Finland.
Okay.
So about 4:05 a.m., a group of dock workers on the early shift that morning saw what they reported as a blinding light emerge from the direction of Lake Onega in the northwest of Russia. And then was...
That's a good point to make, too, to distinguish, because for a long time while looking into this, whenever I think Russia, I kind of forget anything outside of the East Coast even exists. And Russia is absolutely enormous, because, this thing is seen over other countries as well. So in my head, I was going, how far did this thing travel? Not that far. This has all happened on the east side of Russia. I don't want to say East Coast, but east borders of Russia. Or west borders.
Western
borders.
Border.
Wait, which one did I read? I read west.
The western east side of Russia.
The western, northern, western,
the north, but
eastern,
a little south of the north side.
Yeah, in that general area.
Yeah.
All direction is relative. I mean,
yeah.
So.
West of center, but east of west. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So this event actually would become one of the larger events to kind of solidify in the Soviet UFO history. There would be multiple investigations about the event and like the phenomenon and what actually happened. There were multiple government and like civilian science explanations put forward about what it is, but still to this day, it is still disputed about what exactly happened. So the official investigation, the first one, which occurred in just a few months after the actual event, you had an official use only preliminary report, like a high security report that certain governments use, and it was prepared by an engineer physicist, Menkov and Petrovskaya. I'm going to butcher these names so hard. Buckle up, everybody.
Buckle up. Let's do it. Crack another beer.
Yeah, right. If you wanted them butchered, you'd have me saying them every time.
And this is the original report that came out. Like, you know, this is the most like the one that occurred just directly after it. So, I mean, this would probably be like the most accurate or had the information that was available at the time. And that one came out to actually become deemed inconclusive, is what they said. So they couldn't figure out what exactly it was. And then you'd later have scientists go in, and you had a report or a paper filed by Lev Mironovich Gindelis and colleagues in 1999. And Lev Mironovich Gindelis is actually one of the pioneers of modern SETI research. Like, he was a Soviet scientist, but he was also instrumental in implementing a lot of like the SETI and the search for extraterrestrials signals via radio technology. Sadly passed away earlier this year in May. But in his report, they broke down they took in a ton of information, reports from like firsthand reports for people who actually witnessed the phenomenon, military and civilian science reports, and they kind of put it together. And when they did their analysis, they were able to kind of separate the actual event into what they identified as like 3 different distinct phases that they tried to define. So
this thing was seen by a lot of people over the span of a couple of countries. Like, there was a lot of witnesses to this event, even at 4:05 in the morning, you know, some ungodly hour, but it is Russia. So what else are you going to do?
Right. You had tons of witnesses to actually see the event and like the different phases of this event. So they took a lot of the witness reports and kind of took those to be able to kind of distinguish what the event happened and how it began and then how it ended. So you had the first phase is probably best described from a report that was brought forward by an amateur astronomer from the village of Nemonyevo, which is 35 kilometers northwest of Petrozavodsk. Now, they described the object as having a body in the form of a lens, and then it was surrounded by a matte translucent ring. So if you can, for like picturing that in your head, immediately is like, sounds like a jellyfish. Like, if that's what you're kind of thinking.
Sky jelly.
It describes it pretty good. Like that's what put it in my head, that like, I was like, oh, okay, well, I see why people say jellyfish, because the outside wasn't really glowing. It was just, kind of see-through, but whatever was emitting the light was inside, encased in this translucent ring.
So there's some type of like nucleus in the middle of it that's glowing.
Maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
And was it some type of like would you say like not like a force field, but some type of something surrounding it, right?
It was some kind of like mantle kind of described. So it was like they said that the ring around the central object didn't seem to be connected by any like solid bridges or anything like that, but it was still preserved during the movement of the object. So it seemed like the whole thing was moving like as one. So you had this lenticular body that was actually they described it as glowing the color of dark amethyst, so like a dark purple color. Ooh. And then it seemed to be illuminated from within, so giving off its own light, not a reflection.
What a crazy phenomena.
What an excellent description of a phenomenon. Not like a lot of times you see like, oh, it's just some bright light pulsating.
It was
this and that. And
it was like a glowing orb, blue,
Like this.
That's it.
I flicked for once, and then I flicked my flashlight on, it disappeared. It paints such a good picture, but I think that just goes to how many people saw it. Mm-hmm. There's artist renditions of it. There's, so many people describing it that it's truly like sounds like a unbelievable sight to see.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's weird too, because it almost sounds like it takes shape of, like, let's say like a molecule, right? With the nucleus, and then it's got like the electron fucking.
Oh, I like that.
Right? Like, yeah.
And as it moved around, right, whatever that spacing was, like between the outside and the inner, like, let's, for lack of a better word here, nucleus, it holds the shape. So it's not like the middle is drifting apart. It all stays in uniform as it travels across the sky, which
it seems connected.
Yeah, like it seems connected, but at the same time, not at all.
Right. Now, how did it move? Like, was it moving slow? Was it fast? Like, how long did it last?
So they had another report during the first phase, and this one came from Troitsk, which was in the Chelyabinsk region. Mm. And so they described it as having, like, you have your center. So they said it was some type of luminous ball, and they said it was about the size comparable to the moon. It's so in size, like just kind of like sitting there, going in there. And then as it traveled, it left behind this orange tail as a contrail. So how fast it moved, it pretty much moved to the sky. They said that, like, this entire event lasted about 12 minutes.
A pretty long time, actually.
And with that, you had this, like the ball also seemed like, people reported as seeing it kind of like, it seemed to flicker, and then also emitting some type of rays of light from all along, like tangential lines that came off of the sides. So you had these like, there were some reports actually of people's, like one or two reports of these beams of lights like hitting buildings or windows, and then actually like boring holes through some material and buildings.
And not only that, but like left it like a crystalline like substance, like inside, like it burned, like right through, like the light burned a hole through this physical object, but without harming any person, around.
Well, it's not that it didn't harm. Like, I was reading this one encounter about this Lev Nikolaevich Gelkin. He was a geophysical scientist or something like that, and he witnessed it with his wife. They were in their apartment building, and he described that fucking beam of light hitting his window in his apartment, and following the craft or whatever it was disappearing. He said he had this burning in his throat, and then they had this like brief period of amnesia, which was fucking super weird.
Amnesia from like the beam itself?
Well, that's what it sounded like. Like there was just this clouded fog and amnesia following the event, and it took them, they say, like until the next day where they started, kind of like recollecting what exactly happened and what they saw. And it happened to both of them.
But that's such a weird thing to see too, because it's not like this thing emitted like light beams that were just like shot out and like, and laser bored holes. Like from the witness encounters that I read and stuff, it was like I kind of pictured the waves in my head similar to like the movements of like an aurora,
kind of like wavy,
right? Where the light is kind of moving and bending down to the ground, and like that, like it's not shooting in a straight line, which is what caught people. Like they were so amazed is that, like from what we know of light, it doesn't move it. That's why when you watch the Northern Lights and seeing it bend and stuff, it's very cool. But to see like some sort of craft having lights basically come off it and, seemingly look like it raining light or raining glitter and these lights, it's one thing to see it in the sky. It's another thing to see it right in front of you.
Well, have you seen that picture, the supposed picture of it? Because that makes it kind of look like it's coming down in like tubes and hitting people, kind of contrary to what you were describing.
So like energy rays.
I've seen that picture as well, yeah.
So the energy from this object, whatever it is, there's some reports of it actually interacting with matter and like pitting stuff.
Yeah, so some type of like a discharge or something from the object. Yeah, there are reports of it somehow affecting the ground below it or where it traveled. So this second phase of the ball, right? This one is kind of described in the report is like when it became a ball, that was the second phase. The jellyfish phase is like the first one, because they described it as like the ball, like once it like loosed from that lenticular formation, the ball came later. Like after that lenticular formation came out, then you had it transformed into a ball and then took off, and then kept going. And so you had this, like Brayden said, one of the explanations that was offered was like, oh, this is some type of aurora or something like that. But the fact is that the plume from the circular object that was still traveling, it was still observed against the background of the clouds. Like it was still under, like you could still see it against the clouds at night or early
which
morning.
means below the clouds. Yeah.
Right.
Which auroras, if it's cloudy, you don't see.
So now, getting past that, I guess we're still in the first phase actually. So now is the second phase. Now the second phase is what the scientists in the report kind of put together from reports from, these are when the object crossed into Finland airspace. And most of these reports were filed by Finnish press and people who were there in some of the cities that were in the path of this object. So, a lot of them observed the glowing ball phenomenon. They didn't describe it as like, you don't get as many reports about the jellyfish thing. You see the glowing ball object moving over these areas of land.
So as it shifts from Russia over Finland, it seems it's changed. Like,
right.
The phenomenon.
So it's kind of either dropped the whole like lens shaped mantle that it had formed before, and now has turned into this glowing ball. And these reports, again, you have numerous witnesses reporting this, and some of the first people to notice this object were actually police patrol cars. You had one police patrol car report to their central communications, and then after they reported it, you had other patrol vehicles actually monitor the object as well. So you had police actually, they would be out early. Like who else would really be out at like 4 a.m?
Yeah.
Cops and paramedics.
Yeah.
It's pretty much
so, but you can kind of
and reporters
see there. It's not just like one or two people like saw this object. It is like actual policemen, multiple policemen observing this object as it went. And so according to the police, you had this ball of light that was very bright moving in a northward direction, and it seemed to be leaving a trail of smoke behind it.
Smoke.
And you had a taxi cab driver report that the illumination was so bright that it actually lit up their cab from the inside. So it was close enough to the ground that it was actually, projecting illumination. That's why we kind of, during cosmic channels and stuff, I like to ask people, like, if it's close enough to the ground, it's an actual object, like you'll see it casting shadows. Yep. Usually something like that is what you kind of want to look for. And so this one was bright enough, giving off its own illumination to be like, it's actually casting shadows. So it is something there. It's not a figment of your imagination. It's actually something producing some type of light.
Well, yeah. And the smoke plume is interesting too, because when I saw that, my brain kind of went to, I'm like, well, maybe this thing is malfunctioning, right? That's why it's in our skies. It's flying. Something's happening to it, and it's having some reaction with our atmosphere, wind, oxygen. Something's happening to it that's causing issues, because usually smoke it's not that great of a sign.
Not in aircraft or anything right? In the sky. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like smoke, usually when there's smoke, there's fire. But like usually it's not the best sign, especially for, I imagine, some sort of craft that, is an aerial craft. It's probably not very good.
It's interesting with the differences. Like we have vast differences in what people are seeing in somewhat of a close proximity, right? I'm wondering if there could possibly be maybe two crafts.
Oh, two separate objects?
Two different crafts, right? Like we've never really talked about something that's changed its appearance like this before. It's kind of bizarre.
That's a new one.
It is strange. It is strange, but you would think that with the direction it's traveling, that it does line up with the witness accounts that whatever was seen at first in Petrozavodsk, in the direction it's traveled is then seen in Finland. It kind of tracks.
I mean, there's pretty much from the amount of reports that they put together for the 1999 report, there's pretty much like I think there's an unbroken line of just observers that went over and like saw this object. And it's like, I mean, Russia is huge. So there could have been a part where the two objects,
the first largest landmass, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it essentially comprises like 1/6 of the world's landmass.
It's massive.
It's huge. So, I mean, there's a possibility, of course, but I think that pretty much like the whole thing, it just seemed to go into phases, especially when they talk about that at the end of the first phase, that's where you have the glowing orange object seem to break free, or at least like move into its next second phase and then take off. And then that's what they saw over Finland.
So maybe it needs some type of protective layer to get through our atmosphere.
Possibly.
And then it ditches it.
Right. Well, so the cities are only, so Helsinki and Petrozavodsk are 733 kilometers apart by car. So straight line, you're looking more like probably like 600. So so it depends how high the object was in the atmosphere. You'll probably see the thing simultaneously within a short period of time.
So the third and final phase of this object was kind of determined to be this intense glow.
You mean this wasn't even its final form?
No.
Shit.
It's not perfect yet.
So its final phase was that it was observed to kind of travel near and over the horizon, and then there was a glow that seemed to just continue until the early dawn hours. And so during this phase of the phenomenon, it was reported that there were actually luminous objects that were also noted at several points, like besides that object. So it was like there seemed to be other objects like trailing behind it or identified in the sky. This phenomenon that occurred definitely is one of the better ones, because there are very few sightings of UFOs that have ever been corroborated by so many people.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like we only just now, we could probably make I'm not going to promise that we will, but I'm saying that you could make a 3-part whole series about this event itself, because there are so many reports, letters that got written into news places, like investigations by civilians and things like this, like people writing into their local hydroclimatological scientists and everything. There's just a ton of reports about this phenomenon and what happened and what people saw.
And just to add to what you said, it's amazing the amount of witnesses. 2, it's amazing at the sheer level, the amount of witnesses who they're not even in the same country, not even in the same profession, don't know each other, spread out across such vast distances. You know what I mean? It's such a huge chunk. It's not like, holy shit, 50 kids from camp saw it all at the same camp. This is people that don't even speak the same language seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, and you had a huge cross section of witnesses that people who saw it from different lifestyles and whatever you want to call it. But you had policemen, sailors, ambulance crew. In Helsinki, you had people seeing this glowing ball. Apparently in Turku, 2 men reported seeing a spinning object that they described similar to a life buoy. And then even in Denmark, there was a report of pilots flying over Copenhagen that saw this glowing object that same night.
Oh, you know what I meant to look up? How 12 kilometers in meters?
Oh shit! Cloak of invisibility.
12 kilometers.
That's what they said.
That's 12,000 meters.
I guess so. Yeah. It's basic math, I guess.
Basic math. A little bit of metric system there.
Go that. So what's that in feet? That's what I meant. So 12,000 meters to feet, because that's what they saw it at. So 39,000 feet. So up the cruising altitude, baby.
Wait, what are we at? How many meters are we at?
12,000.
12,000.
Into that in
12,000. Okay, yeah. So yeah, times 3 point whatever.
Yeah, because they said I remember reading that and them saying like 12 kilometers up. Oh, I must have a hotkey on that kicks my camera off somewhere, but I don't know what the hotkey is. Anyways,
I thought you're just hiding in embarrassment.
No, never.
Okay.
I show my embarrassment to the world every time I step out of my house. It's at cruising altitude in Copenhagen here, like where they see it. These pilots see it way up there.
I mean, you even had the director of the Petrozavodsk Hydrometeorological Observatory tell the local news agency that they had him and nobody among his staff at his agency had ever seen something like this in meteorology. Like they'd never seen something similar to this since their service there in the Karelia area. Never seen anything like it.
Yeah, this is one of the stranger ones we've talked about. It's not like it's a long lasting event over multiple locations.
When it changes, seemingly like changes shape and as it moves along.
And as you can imagine, that this is 1977, so you're at pretty much the rising, if not height, of the Cold War.
Oh, yeah.
This event, witnessed by so many people within the Soviet Union and outside the Soviet Union, and in close proximity, sent shockwaves through the entire Soviet Union. And there were it is probably the catalyst for what would become the equivalent, or the Soviet equivalent, to Project Blue Book.
Yeah, no doubt. Like really, like they ended up investigating. We're going to get to it more throughout the case file, but like 10,000 events over this period of time.
They had to take this seriously because at this time, like people legitimately thought that this was perhaps. Some people thought it was the Americans attacking them. Some people thought it was a nuclear bomb set off in the atmosphere. Like people thought potentially they were under attack seeing this thing.
So you had the Kremlin actually convene an unprecedented meeting of the military and scientific experts. So it was a joint effort by both the academic branches and services, and then you had the military as well, kind of come together, which had never happened before. And they put these guys in the same room in order to hammer out a plan as to what they were going to do about this phenomenon and future phenomenon, because the government was under immense pressure from just the circumstances itself. You had the news agencies, like, even though it is, it is communist Russia, and they have control over the press, it had just gotten out. There is something, I read something that it only got out because the news service that sent it in, it didn't hit any of the kind of, I guess, the trigger words that the KGB or whoever, like the people who are monitoring the media, it didn't really hit any of those markers, or didn't have any of the markers on there. So it ended up making it into print, and then people actually seeing it and talking about it and being able to kind of corroborate the reports. And then it just kind of blew up from there. Therefore, it kind of put pressure on the politicians to kind of do something about it. I mean, you could compare it to like the Washington DC UFO flap. You could compare it to that, where it's like there's so much stuff happening over a major city, and people are scared. I mean, you got to do something. You have to offer up some type of explanation. You have to show that you're doing something to put the
government has no choice at that point when it affects that many of its citizens to not act in some way.
Right.
So pretty much, this event is kind of like that, so many people witnessed it. It got out into the press. Everyone's talking about it. So it pretty much forced the Soviet Union at the time to start their own Project Blue Book. They investigate thousands. But just before we get a little farther into it, we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable. That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable.
We're back. Talking about the Petrozavodsk phenomenon, which now at this point after the event itself, a lot of ufologists will kind of attribute this as or kind of name this as like the impetus or the driving force behind the Soviet Union taking UFOs seriously. This is like 20 years after United States started actually kind of, or at least 10 years, like a decade. What was 1967?
Blue Book?
No, something like that.
Blue Book?
Not even following
60s.
in the steps, but actually kind of putting this thing together. So
what I loved about this was that everyone's freaking out about this encounter. So many witnesses and officials come on. They're like, hey, listen, it was nothing. Your eyes, they play tricks, many tricks. It was the Soyuz. We had a Soyuz rocket launch. That's what you saw. It was just that. And then behind closed door, they're like, get us the best. We need the best people researching UFOs right now.
What is going on?
What is going on out there? And I'm like, well, if it was truly the Soyuz rocket, which makes no fucking sense based on the descriptions, why immediately after are you so interested in getting UFO researchers and getting to the bottom of this?
It's so hard to believe though, because you think about it, like, okay, it's the first largest landmass in the world. Okay, this is how many years post World War II? So how many fucking nuke tests and shit like that have they been doing? And we all know that fucking UFOs like to come around and sniff around, bases and wherever there's nukes and stuff like that. Like, they had nothing for UFOs before this? Nobody investigating this type of shit?
No, not
like,
really.
How do we
they
know
didn't
that
have
for sure?
They didn't have a standardized reporting or any kind of like chain of command
that they wanted us to know about.
Well, yeah,
it's possible. Yeah,
they didn't have like a public one. Like for them it was for the Soviets it was the Military Industrial Commission. And then you had the National Academy of Sciences, and you didn't have any communication between the two before this. Like, you didn't really have an idea of like how one could. There were civilian UFO investigations. Like, there was a Soviet equivalent to kind of like NICAP and like MUFON, like the civilian ufological societies. Like, those did exist, and we'll probably actually have to do a case file about like one of the founders. It's Alfred Siegel. Was one of kind of like the pioneers of Soviet ufology. Probably have to talk about him at some point down the road. But you had the civilians who were kind of just putting together reports, eyewitness reports, but you didn't have the kind of manpower that could actually be harnessed by the giant military industrial commission, the entire armed forces of Russia being able to get eyes on the sky and reports that you could pull in from those things, especially around areas like proving grounds and military installations. You hadn't had the Academy of Sciences, civilian scientists hadn't had access to any of that stuff before this. So you had those two branches coming together in 1978 to begin investigating.
They're scratching their heads. They're like, maybe cover a missile with sheet.
So you had both arms were kind of tasked with separate responsibilities in terms of like what information, where their information was sourced from. So you had the Defense Ministry, which naturally studied the observation reports that came from various arms of the service, and then the Academy of Sciences would collect reports that were from research organizations. And this would continue from pretty much from 1978 until the 90s, until like the total collapse of the Soviet Union, that they did this. So twice subsequently in 1981 and 1986, they put forth 5-year plans of defense-related research that were approved, and then included the problem of what they termed anomalous phenomenon. So it's kind of
I like that. AP. That's what they called them.
Maybe
That's what they called them in Russia, APs.
Right.
So in 2 separate reports, it made it into like a full comprehensive like defense report it
was like pretty much like in the defense budget. Like there was money budgeted towards government funds were budgeted towards the effort of identifying anomalous phenomenon.
So they had their own ATIP.
Yeah. That's what I would totally, when I was reading this, I was like, oh, this is essentially ATIP. This is Project, this is Grudge, this is Blue Book, this is ATIP.
All countries around the world, study UFOs. No big deal. Everyone's curious.
And so they took into consideration the public's reaction to essentially a full legalization of the studies of the nature of UFOs, or what they titled anomalous phenomenon. So you have to note that they called it officially. They kind of put out the word that's like, we're not referring to these as UFOs. We're going to call them anomalous phenomenon because, as scientists, they don't want that kind of baggage on the,
just leave it wide open.
That they're
wide open.
Yeah. So they wanted to, they took into like 3 considerations into this legislation, or the funding of this program. And so they wanted the formal association of the research program with the classified plan of work on defense projects. They wanted the initially assumed high probability that the observed strange phenomenon would have their origin in military technology, and the possible military use in the event of successful solution of the problems formulated of certain probable probabilities of UFOs. What they identified as like the things that they would want to study, or would probably have the highest value in terms of military application, were the absence of radar target contrast and high maneuverability, like those things that we have seen in UFOs, flying at 90-degree angles, instantaneous acceleration,
starting, up, down,
unable to be picked up on radar, those kinds of things. Like those were, but those considerations, like that was the immediate target of their,
the zoomies, but just for planes.
That they were gonna, is kind of knowledge, or that was the target, the intentions of the scientific study of these anomalies, is that naturally we're going to apply these to military first. Like that's what they were gonna do. And so you had the Central Military Research Institutes, which were located just outside of Moscow. And this was named the main executor of the military section for the UFO program.
You mean had the AP program?
AP program. Its head was VP Balashov, and he was a prominent specialist in radiation caused and other injurious effects on military hardware, and he was appointed as its scientific supervisor. So the military was more concerned with the idea that these UFOs would pose a risk to military operators and personnel and operations. That was their biggest concern. So naturally, they would put somebody in charge, such as VP Balashov, that had experience in examining the effects of what could happen if these things. So somebody who is familiar with that kind of knowledge. On the other side, the man appointed to the academic part of the UFO studies was academic Vivi Mugulin, who was a leading expert in the theory of oscillation and propagation of radio waves, and radar. And he became the director of the Academy's Institute of Terrestrial Magnetism, the Ionosphere, and radio wave propagation.
Oh, are you talking about AITMLRWP?
Exactly.
That is a great, an absolutely great program.
I thought I knew what that was.
Yeah,
I will admit, I was
there.
exhausted by the end of researching this because there were so many fucking acronyms and there were so many institutes going through all this stuff. I had a headache by the time I was done researching all this shit. I kept pulling all this stuff up. I'll say that right now. I had to lay down after reading some of these.
Hard drive overload.
So one characteristic of the study for these research projects is that a lot of scientists that were associated with the projects can tell you that the study of anomalous phenomenon was one of, if not the least expensive defense-related research projects.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest that they wouldn't give a lot of money to it.
Yeah, throw a few bucks at it. Let it linger.
So that kind of calls into question, like, how seriously was the Soviet government, the Soviet Union, taking anomalous phenomenon at this point? Because it's like, if you're putting this thing, they pretty much had to beg for funding, like, after the points of this, and that is a point that's kind of brought up. This
is the height of the Cold War, man, where it's like, it's not like they can just, like, this isn't, they don't know what this is. They have no tangible, like, evidence. They're just like, we want to find out what this is. Is it the States? Is it something else? Could we use it? Could we defend against it? But we don't really know what it is. But at the same time, we're like locked in this Cold War with the United States. All the funding's going to that. Like, all the funding's going to other programs and stuff. And you got to remember, like, they're almost tapped out. You know what I mean? Like, the fall of the USSR is, like, you know, not far off, right? So it's like, I can't imagine, you know, they're probably running out of funds at this point where they're tightening the old belt, be like, oh, you know what, the AP program, get what you get.
Yeah.
I mean, it's surprising, though. Can they afford to make that call, especially when they don't know if it is, like, it could be technology from the fucking States?
Well, maybe that was one of the things where it's like, okay, they're going to give this initial funding. If you find like, if we can prove anything that's exciting, or, you know, that might, we're going to put more funds into it. But until we have that further evidence, we just don't have the funds to lock up. We're too busy, right? Sending spies over in the forms of American celebrities, right? Paying for their lavish lifestyles in Hollywood.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I like that.
So you had this document that was drawn up by the main executor of the defense ministry, and it pretty much approved, or it was approved by the chief of the general staff of the Soviet armed forces in January of 1980. And this one I found interesting because it actually kind of standardized the procedures whereby the main executor of the program would receive information from individual armed services. So they kind of named a person, like, this is who you're going to send. Your reports on anomalous phenomena are going to end up here. This is where they're going. And then it also set down the rules for documenting UFO sightings in the armed forces themselves and the procedures for submitting those reports in accordance with the urgency and the importance of the information contained within them. So you had an entire kind of layout of what was going to happen if you saw an anomalous phenomenon, which I thought was really interesting that this happened in 1980. And then when in contrast to the United States, we didn't really have this. We never really had this. The reports always kind of ended up like you had the FBI or you had the Air Force, Army or whatever. And then they would kind of file their own reports. And then that stuff would just end up, you know, in some box over right next to the Ark of the Covenant or whatever. But you never really had a
Locked
standardized
away.
thing. They didn't even consider this until I remember like 2018, like that's when they started writing out like, no, we're going to make, ATIP, like what was it, 2008? Yes, like 2008, like when they had like ATIP kind of come out. But even then, we never had like a single department responsible or a single organization that put together. And now that's mainly armed services. We've never here in the United States had one that was both like academic and, to my knowledge, right off the top of my head, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure.
Dan, you should have seen what we were doing in fucking Canada, bud.
Yeah. Wow.
Super sophisticated.
Very sophisticated shit up here.
Yeah.
Greatest Canadian minds.
We're not allowed to talk about it, but we're all in on it.
Big time.
We're all in on it, and we all know nothing about it at the same time.
Yeah. No, we all know it. We're a socialist country, so we all share the information.
That's true. Right.
We all got a piece of the truth.
Absolutely.
This organization eventually earned the name the Network. Like it was just referred to as the Network.
That's a fucking cool organization.
The Network.
And like Zell said, it was over investigated probably like 3,000 cases, at least 3,000 cases that they investigated from 1978 to 1990. And it ends up being kind of just like Blue Book, at least what's reported. And it's like only about like 300 of the cases were considered to be legitimately anomalous. Like, what is that, 10%?
10%. But Blue Book was less. Blue Book was about 5.
Right.
So maybe either Blue Book like took more cases, like a wider net when they investigated. But same thing though, like 5%, 10%. That's a pretty significant number of like stuff like your best science.
Which is still 300 cases, still a lot. Like
your best scientists and military advisors don't have a clear answer. They're like unidentified, like a mystery. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah. And I think it's just amazing that this all stemmed from that one huge event. I mean, it's not amazing, but it's also
that's
like kind of like, yeah, duh. But
it just shows how significant that event was.
Well, and that's what I mean. That's why you can't just write off this event as, a Soyuz rocket or whatever the official explanation was for it, because it was the catalyst for all of this research being done. And there's no way they're going to do any of that if they don't think there's something else to this. Like, you know what I mean? If this is like, you're not going to be like, oh, hey, yeah, that was in fact the Soyuz rocket, but we should just start studying UFOs for no particular reason, just in case. I mean, would it hurt? Maybe not. Like that doesn't logically like add up to me. Like you see a cause and effect here. You have this huge event that is seen across countries, hundreds of witnesses, that has tangible evidence of boreholes in asphalt, holes in windows, people seeing it, feeling effects from it. And then you instantly going into researching these phenomenon. You can't tell me that you knew what it was. I'm like, that doesn't add up for them to
How
say
long
that,
did it take them to come up with these explanations though? Like, were these instantaneous or did it take them a while? Like, did this group get together and do some research and be like, oh shit, okay, so we launched a rocket on this day or we did this?
Okay,
I thought they reported the Soyuz first.
Well, it's the Cosmos 955.
That's the one.
So the Cosmos 955, so after the event, the day after the event happened, there was a news bulletin from Moscow, an official news bulletin that came out of speaking of that the Cosmos 955 had been launched from the Russian Baikonur Cosmodrome, which was their the public's known space, like their space launch facility. That was the one that was known by the public and most well known by the United States. And so that was the first kind of explanation that kind of came out. Then you would have multiple explanations. Now you have a kind of a Roswell situation kind of popping up here, where you had the director of the Pulkovo Observatory, Vladimir Krot, who thought that the phenomenon, or went on record thinking that the phenomenon was caused by the fall of a meteorite.
What?
And then later, in speeches, he would change his story to thinking that attributing the phenomenon to auroras.
Wait, did this meteorite somehow like slow down, like really slow,
Well, I imagine it kind of like, it's one of those kind of skimming meteors that it kind of hits and boom, and then kept going. Something like that.
Don't they normally take 12 minutes to get
no
fall?
chance.
Isn't that normal?
A meteorite, anything that collides with Earth's atmosphere or like airburst or anything like that, those things are over like.
Well, I'm assuming it to be like a shooting star, right? It's just fucking zip by. Gone.
Yeah, like kind of, but shooting star is usually like a much smaller piece of debris. So if say it was like, it was like a big meteor hit the atmosphere, started tumbling and burning, it's still going at 30,000 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, it came to a stop, turned into a translucent jellyfish for a little bit,
spouted
before
out,
then traversing west,
shooting a orb out of its.
As it started to smoke because its engines were malfunctioning in the asteroid.
Yeah, the meteorite. I mean, nah.
The meteorite is ludicrous.
Stupid.
Based on the reports and the accounts, the pictures, the artists.
We don't know if that picture is real or not, right? Like that's
artist rendering.
Supposedly a picture of it.
So wait, so he's originally said
that's another thing that's interesting is the fact that this is with this span of of sightings and this many people that have witnessed it, and this is the 77 people have access to cameras here, and we don't no one has a fucking decent picture of this other than
but it's
the one
also
that we don't know
4 in the morning.
4 in the morning.
Right? I'm going to say that people don't have Polaroid cameras with them in their pockets.
No, but they have them in their houses. This was seen from fucking apartment.
But I think you'd have to
buildings.
take you'd have to probably take a pretty long exposure. Like
there's not a chance those photos are turning out.
Yeah.
But still, they could be like, "Hey, this is a photo of it. I have."
And then
they'd be like
evidence. They'd be like this. Oh yeah, that's a black photo.
Nice smudge. Nice blob you got there, buddy.
There's a black photo.
But we do supposedly have a photo of it.
Yeah, so someone probably had a better camera than everyone else, who was a reporter or something, right?
Okay.
Knew what they were doing. Dude, to take a picture at night, it's tricky.
You just justified all the reasons why they wouldn't be able to be a good photo, and now you're like, well, but
you're saying there's one good one. No, Andrew. To your point, there's one good photo.
Supposedly
there's one good photo, right? And I will tell you right now, like go out
this guy was
at
just
night
randomly filming stars,
and
taking pictures,
photography.
And
like you need to know what you're doing, because if you don't, your picture's going to turn out just black, or you get overexposure and it's just white.
Yeah, especially at this time of day.
Street lights and stuff.
And this picture was just taken by a random bystander.
Well, it might have been someone who knew how to work a camera.
Fucking Sergei Fedorov just hanging out.
Sergei Fedorov.
Yeah. Decided to fucking take a little snap. Send it in.
So we would say that Vladimir Krat, his first statement says that it is a meteorite. Second, he changes it just a little time later. He would go on to say that it is caused by auroras. And this was challenged by the civilian UFO society there in the Soviet Union, because they're like, you're an idiot. Like, auroras don't form below the clouds. Like, you have to form above those. Like, they hit him on that. And then he tries to wriggle out of it and explain it, that it was a rocket stage burning up.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
We've seen weird ones.
So far, out of these 3 theories, the rocket stage, because we have
probably the most reasonable.
Yeah, we have seen, like, when SpaceX they dropped their booster, or what?
And it does that big blue, like
when
the
first stage is launching, it's like a big blue aura. It does look very. It looks very like alien. Like when you looked up, you had no idea what that was. Like, that's UFO.
Boys, it's all cover-ups, man.
So far,
it's all cover-ups.
So if you were to say it's a booster, I mean, it would make more sense for the time spotted, because you do see those for a while. Like they could do slowly. They look like they're going slow, but they're really going 5,000 kilometers an hour across the sky.
Yeah, but
so far,
the light doesn't bend. They don't look translucent, right? They don't stay uniform like that. I can see like the first object where it's like the outer translucent ring, and the whatever is going in the end stay uniform as it travels throughout the sky. I just don't think, and the way that it's depicted of these beams like bending and shining down to the ground just doesn't add up that it's some sort of rocket launch. Like this light is pretty low. Like it's hitting the ground. People are seeing it. People are saying it's like raining, like seemingly like raining light, like glowing. Like I'm like, that's a description that I just doesn't add up to me with rocket launch.
Okay.
But I will agree that what you said, Zell, is like, like when the SpaceX first launched, you're like, yeah, we did think it was aliens. So I do think it's a better Dmitry. He should have came out the gate with this one rather than, because to me he lost credibility by going like, it's a meteorite, and they're like, how? Explain that, and he's like, Aurora, and they're like, how? It's under the clouds, and he's like, oh shit, now I got to get something a little more plausible. To me, like he's lost his credits doing that.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Okay, now let's. We've been talking about this picture, so I just pulled it up real quick here. I think your camera's all fucked, but doesn't matter. It's not on your screen, on my screen. My camera? No, on my screen. Don't worry about it. So here's like the only picture you can find. It looks like a jellyfish. Like it looks like an orb at the top, raining down tentacles, kind of with like. This doesn't. It looks more like a sketch, though. This picture, doesn't it?
Yeah, no. I've seen a different picture. I'll find it.
That's
for you
an
right
artist rendition. Yeah, there's one photo where it looks like light beams.
I saw it on Reddit. I'll pull it up.
So not only would you have at least this Vladimir Krat of the Pulkovo Observatory, you also had M. Dmitriev, who is a doctor of chemical science. He offered up the explanation that the phenomenon was caused by the formation of an air glow zone in the atmosphere, which he explained was how nitrous oxide pollution and factories had caused it. So it was caused by pollution.
You know what? Like, okay, maybe I'd buy in, except that would be such a more occurring phenomenon now.
Well,
right? Like time has defeated that theory.
Well, yeah. 70s and 80s were probably some of the most polluted skies in cities, at least.
It's before regulations and stuff like that.
Like LA back in like the 80s, before they did like all that emissions stuff.
Couldn't see shit.
It was just smog, like thick, disgusting smog and all like the.
Think of China today. Like think of China
pictures,
on a bad day.
in the group. So,
okay, do I have that? Let's see, which one is this? Oh yeah, okay, I got that one too. Okay, so here's the picture again. If you're watching the live stream, if not, we'll describe it to you. So
that's the alleged photo of the Petrozavodsk Phenomenon.
Buddy, that just looks like a giant Kamehameha.
Yeah,
yeah.
The quality of this picture is on par with like
Bigfoot.
No, a Battle of LA. Remember where that have like
it
kind of looks like that.
Yes.
Again, in the picture, it looks like an illuminated top and with like something coming down from the bottom. Yeah, jellyfish like definitely.
Yeah, you can see that ring around. You can see where it's like kind of emitting light above as well. Like, but it's really bright in the hole down below. Like it's. Yeah, it looks like if you just showed me this and be like, what do you think this is? This photo was taken in Russia. I'd be like, man, it looks like the fabric of space time is ripping, and we're seeing a butthole form there.
Yeah. Of course, you go straight to the butt.
Straight to the butt. BJ Cheeks at it again. Mm-hmm. Okay, so
you'd have one more offered explanation as to what happened. Is that you had Dr. James Oberg, who is a mission controller at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. And since NASA was a key, they were pretty much they were fairly invested in Russian spaceflight, as probably any American like aeronautics division probably was. He thought he actually knew what was going on. So Oberg says that he telephoned NASA's satellite tracking center to check whether the Soviets had actually launched something from a nearby cosmodrome that was located at Plesetsk that nobody was supposed to know about. And apparently they had tracked a launch from that facility at 3:58 a.m. on September 20th, which was just minutes before the Petrozavodsk UFO was actually sighted.
Okay.
So launching of a spy satellite
from a cosmodrome that was not supposed to exist. So a little bit about the Plesetsk cosmodrome is that the Plesetsk cosmodrome was known primarily for military launches. It was especially used for the Zenit photo reconnaissance satellites, so spy satellites, which were launched in large numbers during the 70s and 80s. The USSR did not officially admit the existence of this cosmodrome, of this facility, until 1983. So nobody knew about it. Civilians didn't know about it.
Top secret.
Soviets did, yeah. So it kind of lends a little bit of weight to it, but
so now we're back to the a launch though, right?
Well,
right, but the Soviets never officially claimed that this was the satellite. Like they've never officially acknowledged that this was
this was launch. Them.
Nobody's claimed responsibility. They never claimed responsibility for it.
How like readily available is, you know, the fuck, especially like Soviet era information, right?
I imagine not
readily.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's,
you know, possible because, you know, we've talked about other theories where, you know, during Paperclip, they had Operation Osaviking, where they, you know, allegedly grabbed, where we grabbed rocket scientists and, you know, tick scientists. They were grabbing aerospace engineers, and that they were light years ahead in the field of like aerodynamics and stuff. And they actually had, you know, these aircrafts, for lack of a better word, that could do these feats, and that the crash in Roswell is actually one of their most sophisticated spy planes, which is a flying saucer. That is a theory out there. Annie Jacobs writes a book on it. However, I don't see the point in immediately after this, you rounding up and doing the most fucking research UFOs ever.
Yeah, but maybe that was purposeful for them to get that information out there, because they wanted to hide that technology. They didn't want people to know that they had that technology available. So they wanted to be like, "Oh, we're just as surprised as you are."
You know what I mean? Like
they're working, and they didn't crash, and they didn't crash this time. So it's been improving.
We want to get in final thoughts.
Yeah. So those are all the possible theories of what it could be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or, you know what?
You got to go with one more.
I went with this.
We're missing one theory here.
We're missing one. Mine. I thought, as I said, open the case file with, what if this is some kind of cryptid? What if this is some sort of atmospheric
God
creature, right? That comes down like similar to a jellyfish, some sort of light being, maybe a fourth dimensional being that's traversing space and time, much like a jellyfish. And it comes down, and what we are seeing in these times is whatever's it reacting, it in the fourth dimension reacting to our world. And you know, we see the light, the burning, like it's oxidizing, like it travels away, it moves, and we're just seeing it in shapes and stuff that we can understand in our dimension. And that's why we seemingly see this thing move into a ball. And then traverse around, and it's smoking, but maybe it's not necessarily smoke. It's just what we're viewing in our dimension, like the closest thing that can, you know, happen, because we can't even begin to process what's actually going on in whatever dimension this thing operates in. I think it's some sort of
extra dimensional cryptid.
Yeah, I think it's an extra dimensional fucking jellyfish, man, floating around. Why not? Right? These things, like, who's to say a jellyfish can't live in space? What do they do? What do they breathe?
They don't do much.
You don't know, Dan. You ever take a jellyfish?
Water.
Were you there? Were you there, Dan? What kind of patriot are you? Were you there?
I mean, I've been stung by jellyfish. I knew they lived.
What if it's the extra dimensional fucking biological entity from Watchmen?
Okay.
Looks like a giant. It's like a giant octopus, isn't it? If I remember correctly.
Right? Because this thing, you got to remember, like, this thing left physical, like, there's reports of it boring holes in asphalt, in windows, leaving, like, a crystalline substance in these holes. So, like, there was effects enough that the Russians, after this event, go, like, we need to research into whatever the fuck that thing was. And I'm going to say, like, you know, maybe, like, nuclear testing not only brought UFOs and stuff sniffing around, but it also started to attract these other dimensional beings, right? Whether they, you know what I mean? It was coming, or maybe this thing was just happened to be floating by in the sea that is our universe.
It was just floating by.
Dude, we are literally
it was carried on solar winds.
I like that. I love it.
We're literally floating around in an endless nothingness on a rock that's moldy, and you're gonna say that it's ludicrous to think that
I'm not saying it's ludicrous.
Bigger being just drifted by us, and we got a glimpse of it as it drifted away.
A space jelly, interdimensional space jelly.
Yes, that's what I believe.
So then, when your theory, then there's more than one of these space jellies. It could be everywhere.
Yes,
or there could be only one,
or it is the space jelly. But why?
If there's one, there's not. There's likely more than one.
Well, why did the jelly then go from a jelly into a burning orb in the next country over?
Laid an egg that was on fire.
Shot an egg out
and disappeared.
No, it was one of those. It's like a large, I guess, extra dimensional version of the Medusa jellyfish that essentially reduces itself to its minimalist size, and it's like a phoenix. It just reborn. The one that's the immortal jellyfish. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't, but
no,
I do now.
Wow. Well, there's a type of jellyfish that essentially has been a very focus of some scientists, because it's extremely interesting that it's essentially immortal, that it just kind of breaks down its parts and then it kind of grows back to its embryonic stage and then just kind of regenerates. I'm probably oversimplifying it, or
so when this jellyfish hits our atmosphere, or ionosphere, or magnetosphere, or some sphere,
you're thinking about it wrong. You're thinking about it wrong. When it punches through its dimension into ours, that's the reaction that our oxygen, our atmosphere has on its fifth dimensional body, or whatever dimension it's in.
And then the orb, it shoots the orb in a rebirth. I'm combining theories here. Your theory and Dan's theory.
Oh, I'm just adding on.
I like it. No, I like it.
It's it's not my theory at all. I don't want to be backtracking out.
Okay.
I'm going to back out slowly.
On the same theory then? So that what you're saying then, it's just a form of extraterrestrial. It's not from here. It's from somewhere else.
Yeah. Extra dimensional terrestrial.
I like that.
Ultra terrestrial?
I don't know.
Ultra terrestrial. It just exists everywhere at all times. Yeah.
I'm just saying, what's here on Earth, you know what I mean? We have tardigrades and stuff. Magnifying out. You're going to tell me that it's impossible for some sort of being that we don't know about to just be drifting out there.
No, I'm not saying it's impossible at all. Not one bit. In my mind, when I thought you were going with, you're just going to go with a classic ET or Alien, but I like that you took it farther.
Yeah, it's not even it's a yeah.
I like that.
That's my theory.
So was that a final thought theory in one? Is that what that was?
Why else do all the investigative work after? Right? Put in all the work. Work was put in. It wasn't fake work. Work was put in.
I like it. I'm going to you want to go, Dan? Yeah. Dan, send it away.
Yeah, sure. I'll go real quick. I think the Cosmos 955 theory has the most explanation, has the most heft to it, as it is, like we said, or like I said, the Plesetsk Cosmodrome was a secret space facility that wasn't acknowledged. So none of the the scientists who were investigating this would have any knowledge that this place even existed. And you're trying to explain this thing, but the launch of the rocket, or of this spy satellite, potentially it could have exploded. And I think that was one of the stories that they tried to sell to the United States, because you want the United States to think that, yes, our satellite exploded. It's not up there taking pictures of all your advanced military sites. It totally is gone. No more. It's not there anymore. They exploded. You'd want people to think that actually happened. But perhaps the launch was actually successful. And then to muddy the waters even more, they co-opted scientists on there, and they threw some lip service at it. They're like, hey, look, here's some money. We're going to give you, we're totally going to fund you guys UFO things to make this seem legit, that we're not actually launching space satellites. It's UFOs. And there's just this layer on layer of deception as to whether it is a UFO. So, I mean, maybe it is a space jellyfish. Could totally be that. But it's also that the fact that the stuff that they're doing right now also seems a lot similar to some of the stuff the United States has done, where trying to throw out explanations in order to cover up, throwing out UFOs. We talked about before, like deliberate disinformation to cover up for UFOs, or say like, yeah, it is a UFO, but it's actually a secret spy satellite. And then if it's frustrating for me as a person, anybody who's interested in UFOs, where it's like you have to muddy the waters even more, trying to layer on, is it a UFO? Is it a spy satellite? Was it a successful spy satellite? And is it not a space satellite? Is it auroras? Is it some sort of atmospheric phenomenon that's super cool? Is it a plasma torus? Who knows? But the government's not really helping by throwing all this stuff at it. And it's just like, I don't know. But from the descriptions, if you kind of compare it to some of the space satellite launches that occur, I mean, you can look up like, SpaceX and then some of their rocket launches. And if you compare the time of day and the atmospheric conditions, early clear skies, moderately clear skies, early morning rocket launches, and the way that those kind of shape out, I mean, it looks kind of similar to a rocket launch.
Some similarities for sure. Andrew, what do you think?
I mean, there's always a problem when you go near the end here. These theories. I kind of was erring on the side. Like, I thought it would be cool, potentially if they were test piling some of the technology that they acquired from Nazi scientists in Operation Osaviakin. And then what's the one major thing that we know that the Russians are really, really, really fucking good at? And Dan kind of just touched on it.
Disinformation.
Exactly. So maybe all this bullshit that came out, we're putting our top scientists on it because we don't know exactly what it is. And we got to start investigating UFOs, and this could possibly be a UFO. Well, that's probably just all fucking disinformation. Right? So they have this technology, and they were test piling this technology. And whether it was some type of cloaking device or something like that they have, maybe it failed. Maybe there was a problem, and way more people witnessed it than they hoped. And that's what happened here. That being said, in this time, right, between World War II and 1977, like I was touching on earlier, how many fucking times have they used nuclear weapons? How many times have they been used? How many times have they been tested? Right? Mm-hmm. These extraterrestrials are probably seeing the damage that we're doing to our atmosphere and being like, well, we need to go down there and check this shit out. So it's not that hard for me to believe that it is some type of ET coming down, being like, we've got to kind of check in on these people before they blow themselves up or blow everybody up. So, but I think it's Russian technology from Operation Osaviakin.
Fuck, that was pretty eloquent. I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I'm gonna say it right now.
He blacked out there.
Yeah, what just happened? Andrew was just perfect. Just absolutely fucking hit one out of the park there.
Fucking, I'm too sober. That's the problem.
You only had one beer or what?
2 drinks. I only had 2 whiskeys.
That's not enough. That's not enough when you're talking about aliens.
I'm fucking close.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it definitely was not a meteorite. I don't think it was a type of atmosphere.
Because nobody ate it.
No one ate it. There's no record of someone shaving a piece off, eating it. So out. Meteorite out. Atmospheric phenomenon like an aurora or something. I think that's out. Just the sheer distance it traveled and how it changed as it went. The air glow zone. No.
This is a pretty good one.
I mean, what the fuck? What are you talking about here? Chemoluminescence
moved across the sky, left a huge trail behind it. Yeah.
Chemoluminescence
trail in the sky.
Was this chemoluminescence or something? Fucking like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Get out of town.
Sounds cool.
It sounds fucking awesome.
He's like, same as sea in air. Same.
It's the name of my fucking synth rock band.
It's a good name.
Chemoluminescence.
Yeah.
That's actually you should get that website.
It's a cool name.
Yeah, you should get that website.
Mine. I called it.
Shotgun. Dan shotted it. Dan shotted it. Don't buy the website.
Nope.
Do I think it was a launched satellite? I mean, so as far as like what I've seen on video, like the big glowing orb, like that, when the rocket is passing through atmosphere, it is pretty wild looking. It does look extraterrestrial. But what it doesn't look like, so let's take this picture at face value. That's a real picture. it doesn't look like that, right? Not even close. That looks like something complete. That looks, I don't know what that is. Like something, it looks like an atmosphere jellyfish.
Kamehameha.
Yeah. Someone's charging up, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Goku was saving the planet.
So is it an ET? Some type of extraterrestrial thing? Yeah, like Braden said, like, what if it's something living in a different, like the next dimension, and that is it interacting with us, like our atmosphere. Maybe it was just something that passed through the atmosphere at like, you know, going at insane speeds, but in a wave form we don't see visibly, and that's just the reaction. So I'm somewhere, like I wanted to say this easy, it was a Russian satellite, it was disinformation, misinformation. Don't worry about this. Don't look here. But I'm saying this. I'm siding with Braden. I think it's some type of extraterrestrial phenomenon.
Yeah.
Boom. That's what I think. Fun though. I never heard of this one. It's wild.
Super neat. I think it's super cool. Even if it is, it could totally be some type of, extraterrestrial or ultra terrestrial creature coming over to recharge its batteries off our geomagnetic field. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe our eating
the radiation from the fucking nuke, all the nuke testing.
Sure.
Well, that's what called it here in the first place.
Yeah.
Got it over here. This was the perfect, it's breeding ground, or it's, this is where it goes to regenerate, like Doctor Who, like it gets to regenerate, just to absorb some of the geomagnetic energy out of our, or electromagnetic energy out of our atmosphere in order to fuel its rebirth.
I like it. Fun one. If you haven't, look it up.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much information.
There's so much information. At the same time, it's hard to find the information on usual avenues.
It's not
of
widely
where you would
accessible.
normally find, you want an easy listening podcast. There's not a lot.
Nope.
You want to watch some YouTube videos? There's not a lot. You want a good, hour and a half documentary? There's none.
No, you got to read.
You got to read.
You gotta read a lot.
You got to read. You want an audiobook? There's none.
There's none.
You there's no taking the easy route with this case file.
You know what?
Everything I know about this case file, I learned in the last hour. So
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know what? If you want to know about this case file, listen to this and just stop there. That's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing. All right. Let's get into who's our theorite of the week.
I got it. Do you guys have it? Because I think Braden's going to announce it, aren't you, Braden? Or do you have the name? I can send it to you.
No, I don't.
Want me to do it?
I wasn't going to announce it. It's not my pick.
This week's theorite of the week is Deanna Calhoun.
Deanna Calhoun.
For her.
And why? Why is she our theorite of the week?
She came up with one of the most thought-provoking, engaging Facebook posts that we've had in a really long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Would you like to hear about it, Dan?
Would love to.
I would.
Let's hear about it.
Deanna said, I had a dream last night. Braden and I were dating. I always thought I'd end up with Andrew, but ... What up, what up, Braden? Winky face. Right? That's pretty good. I don't know why Braden's so upset, but we do also have a co-theorite of the week. And that person is Travis Ray Harden with his comment, ma'am, that wasn't a dream. That was a nightmare. # Andrew for the win. Love it.
Okay, that's
I'm
great.
no runner up. So sorry, Deanna. Keep dreaming.
I'm nobody's second choice.
How long ago did you come up with that one, buddy?
Huh?
How long ago did you come up with that one?
Since you told me that I've been working on it since you told me that she was.
I knew it. It's just been fucking marinated.
He's been scheming over there.
Yeah.
Only clicked like 10 seconds ago.
It did. Yeah. I was like, keep dreaming. Get it.
Got it.
Got it.
My original, the jerk store called.
They're all out of jerks.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap this episode up, get into after hours here. But if you want to hear the case files early, all the bonus goodies, head over to patreon.com/Alien Theorist Podcast. Support your boys, support your favorite show. This week's newest supporters, Aldo, Joey, JoJo's Malou. Did I say that right? Joey JoJo's Malou.
I don't know. It sounds
Probably.
awesome.
Like Joey JoJo's
Malou. Benjamin Carter. Brandon. Darian Swag Duke Wagner.
Nice.
Just change that just to Swag Duke. Get rid of the rest of that name.
Duke of Swag.
Kid from Solon. and Braid Anzadik. Did someone try and fuck with me here? Braden's a dick. Braden's a dick. Braid Anzadik.
That's just fucking clued in, man.
Braid Anzadik.
Braid
What?
Anzadik.
Braden's a dick.
Braden's a dick.
He's making this up.
That's awesome.
Never. I never make those ones up. All right, that's it. Thank you very much for supporting the show.
And it's not too late to quickly get some merch for Christmas. Treat that feel right in your life, or treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
Head to our store. We got tons of new designs, and as we always say at the end of these things, keep those eyes on the skies.
See you in after hours.
The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car-selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place. That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable. Ah.